Behind these walls, there are secrets that are not shown to the public. Government projects that are quietly carried out, weapons, surveillance, and experiments that are not revealed. And what's even more surprising is that even the citizens of these countries themselves have no idea. In this video, we will visit the 15 most secret buildings in the world. But before we continue, please like this video. It's a big help for us content creators. Thank you very much. Let's start with number 15, ADX Florence. There's a facility that almost no one has seen the inside of. Its official name is United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, but it's better known as Supermax. And according to a former warden, it's like a clean version of hell. It wasn't just built randomly. In October 1983, 2 prison guards were killed by members of a violent gang inside. Because of that, the Bureau of Prisons realized that there are criminals who can't be controlled in an ordinary prison. They needed a different kind of system, stricter, more controlled. So in 1994, the ADX was opened. And here the concept is different. It's not just the guards who are watching. The very design of the building controls everything. Each inmate lives in a cell that's about 7 feet wide and 12 feet long. Everything is inside. Bed, table, chair, sink, and toilet made of solid concrete. These can't be moved. There's a window, but it's not normal. It's very narrow. It's about 4 inches wide and angled. It's designed so the inmate can't tell where he is or what's outside. All he can see is the sky. The food is just passed through a small hole in the door. For 23 hours each day, he won't see any other person. For the remaining 1 hour, he can go out briefly to move around. But it's not normal either. It's just in a small concrete cage that's almost the same size as the cell. The whole facility is soundproof. That means even if you scream, no one will hear you. And the people who are locked up here are not just anyone. These are the most dangerous criminals in American history. People involved in major terror attacks, bombings, and international crimes. A drug lord who has escaped from prison twice. But here, there's no escape for him anymore. In the history of ADX, no one has ever escaped. And according to some former wardens, for many inmates here, ADX is not just a prison. It's their final destination. Not all secret buildings are about weapons or experiments. Some are connected to power, ideas, and how control is maintained over a long period of time. Number 14, Wewelsburg Castle in Germany. But its role changed in 1934. This is where Heinrich Himmler came in. He rented the castle for almost nothing and made it the center of his ideology. Himmler was obsessed with mythology, rituals, and ancient beliefs. He wanted to turn the SS into something like an order of knights, a modern version of a secret group. Inside the castle, there was a round table with 12 seats for his most trusted officers. Under the North Tower, there was a circular room that was made to look like a tomb. There are 12 stone pedestals around, and in the center, there's a fire that must never go out. Above it, there's a large symbol on the floor, a dark design with 12 lines which became one of the most well-known symbols connected to the SS. A castle that was not only used as a residence, but also as a center of ideas, beliefs, and power. But all of this came at a price. The construction of the castle was carried out by prisoners from the concentration camp. Around 4,000 were imprisoned there, and almost half of them never made it out alive. By March 1945, the American soldiers were approaching. Because of this, Heinrich Himmler ordered the castle to be destroyed. They blew up one tower and burned other parts. But they ran out of explosives before the North Tower completely collapsed. When the American troops arrived after 3 days, some parts of the castle were still standing, including the crypt and the so-called Hall of Supreme Leaders. Today it's a museum. The symbol is still on the floor, and the crypt is still open. But until now, it is still not completely clear what rituals were actually performed inside it. Number 13, the Granite Mountain Records Vault in Utah. In 1960, a strange project began. A facility that was dug into the mountain, an underground vault with 6 rooms connected by tunnels that stretch almost 700 feet into the rock. This vault was built not for the military, but because of faith. They believe that religious rites can be performed for people who have passed away. But first, they needed to identify who those people were, so they started collecting records from different countries, birth records, marriage records, and other family documents. According to them, they have records of more than 12 billion people who have passed away, even more than that. That's more than the current population of the world, and it's not just family records that are included. There are also handwritten books, financial records, and documents from high-ranking church leaders. And as for what else is inside, they still haven't fully revealed it. They say it's not secret, but secure. But the vault itself remains closed. It's hidden inside a mountain and contains the names of 12 billion people behind doors that can survive, even a nuclear war. Number 12, Unit 731 in China. In 1936, the Imperial Japanese Army forced people out of 8 villages in Pingpong. In that place, they built a massive compound that covered almost 6 square kilometers. More than 150 buildings were constructed. There were laboratories, operating rooms, prisons, incinerators, a power plant, and even its own railway system. Its official name sounded normal, Epidemic and Water Purification Department. But its real purpose was to create biological weapons and test them on real people. It was led by Shiro Ishii, a microbiologist who believed that if such weapons were banned, it meant they were effective. The prisoners here were called maruta, or logs. It's as if they weren't human. Most of them were from China and Russia, along with some from Korea and Mongolia. They were taken from prisons or picked up by the military police. And inside this facility, some of the darkest experiments in history took place. They deliberately infected the prisoners with various diseases like plague, cholera, typhoid, and anthrax just to see how these spread in the body. There were times when people were operated on while still alive and without anesthesia. They did this to study how the organs are affected when someone is sick. Bodies were frozen to study the effects of extreme cold. And that's not all. They also bred fleas carrying the plague in huge numbers. In just a few days, they could produce almost 30 kilograms of live bacteria. They even used this in field tests. There were bombs filled with infected fleas that were dropped on cities in China. Inside the facility alone, it is estimated that more than 3,000 people died. And if you include the effects of the biological weapons outside, the number of victims reaches up to 100,000. When the war ended in August 1945, Shiro Ishii ordered all evidence to be destroyed. The documents were burned and the remaining prisoners were killed. After this, he made a deal with the United States. In 1947, Douglas MacArthur allowed Ishii and his team to avoid prosecution in exchange for all the data from their experiments. The research was brought to a military facility in Maryland, and while other war criminals were tried in court, the scientists from Unit 731 were never held accountable. Many of them returned to normal life and became doctors, officials, or academics. It took a long time before Japan acknowledged what happened. It was only in 1988 that they officially admitted it. Today, the remaining part of the site in Harbin is a museum. But many of the documents, especially those held by the U.S., have still not been fully released until now.
Number 11, Kapustin.
In May 1946, a year after World War II, the Soviet Union decided to build a new test site in a remote desert. It is located about 500 kilometers from Moscow and almost 100 kilometers from what was then Stalingrad. They called it Kapustin Yar, which means cabbage ravine. In the following decades, it became one of the most important rocket testing sites of the Soviet Union. This is where they tested the first V-2 rockets they acquired from Germany, along with the German scientists they also brought in. The first launch happened on October 18, 1947. And since then, almost all major Soviet missile programs have been tested here. In 1956, the first test of a nuclear warhead launched by a missile was also conducted here. In total, there were more than 11 nuclear explosions. These were conducted in this place during the Cold War. According to U.S. spy plane reconnaissance in the late 1950s, there were launch sites, runways, radar systems, and many buildings whose purposes they couldn't identify. There was another strange report. On June 19, 1948, an unidentified object was detected flying over the base. Kapustin Yar is still active today, and more than 24,000 missile and rocket launches have been conducted there. A place full of experiments and mysteries that until now is still not fully understood. Number 10. Porton Down in the United Kingdom. In a quiet countryside in Wiltshire, there is a facility that has existed for a long time, but is rarely talked about by the government. And since 1916, there have been experiments conducted here that are not readily disclosed to the public. The official name for this place now is the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory. What they do is chemical and biological defense research. This started during World War I as a place to manufacture and test chemical weapons. At that time, the permission given to them was not sufficient. This would no longer pass today's standards. By the time World War II came, the research expanded further and included the study of biological weapons. In 1942, they were able to create an anthrax bomb. Because of this, the island was dangerous for more than 40 years, and it wasn't considered safe until 1990. After the war, the Allied forces discovered something. Germany had developed more advanced nerve agents like sarin. Because of this, it was immediately studied at Porton Down. Between 1951 and 1989, more than 20,000 British servicemen participated in the experiments. But most of them didn't really know what was being tested on them. They were only told that it was a research test. On May 6, 1953, a 20-year-old RAF engineer named Ronald Madison participated in a test. A small drop of sarin was placed on his arm. After 45 minutes, he died. The first investigation was done in secret and called it an accident. But when the case was reopened in 2004, it was revealed to be an unlawful killing. He is the only official who died because of human trials. But there are other cases that are still being debated to this day. In 1952, the VX nerve agent was also developed here. And at a separate site, Britain produced about 20 tons of sarin from 1954 to 1956. Eventually, the government stopped the offensive chemical weapons program and focused more on nuclear deterrence. But the research did not stop. The study on how to protect people continued. They developed antidotes and tried to understand how these chemicals spread. In April 2018, this was also where the poison used in the poisoning of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter was identified. It was identified as a Novichok nerve agent. Until now, Porton Down is still the only facility in the UK authorized to store and handle chemical weapons. But there is still one thing that remains unclear until now. What is the full extent of the experiments that were done on soldiers during the Cold War? There have been investigations and compensation given, but many details have still not been released to the public. And the very building where the experiments were conducted still stands to this day, and the research is still ongoing. Number 9 is Pine Gap in Australia. About 18 kilometers from Alice Springs in the middle of the desert, there's a facility that looks like it's from another world. When it was built in 1966, we called it the Joint Defense Space Research Facility. It sounded like it was just about astronomy or satellite tracking, but its role is something else entirely. Pine Gap is one of the most important CIA intelligence facilities outside the United States. And according to some researchers, it's one of the most important places for surveillance. Because it's in the southern hemisphere, its satellites can monitor almost 1/3 of the world. This includes China, North Korea, parts of Russia, the Middle East, and the Indian Ocean. For many years, the Australian government has admitted that such a facility exists, but they never say what really happens here. The official explanation is that it helps monitor missiles and arms control. But that's not the whole story. In 1980, a researcher named Desmond Ball published a study saying that it was used for signal intelligence. And in 2013, Documents released by Edward Snowden confirmed this. According to the documents, Pine Gap is part of the global surveillance system that collects phone calls, emails, and internet data from different countries. Not only that, it also plays a role in pinpointing the exact location of targets for United States military operations, including drone strikes. The domes you see outside, more than 38 of them hide dishes that capture signals from satellites, military communications, and even mobile phones. In 1975, there was an Australian Prime Minister named Gough Whitlam who wanted to shut down Pine Gap. One of the reasons was that he wasn't fully informed about what was really being done here. But that didn't happen. The facility remained and continued to grow. And until now, the data from this place is still being used for military operations in different parts of the world. Number 8, Compound 19 in Russia. On April 2, 1979, a small mistake caused a huge tragedy. A technician removed a clogged filter from a machine. He left a note that it needed to be replaced, but it wasn't passed on to the next shift. When the machine was restarted, it still didn't have a filter. Within a few hours, the anthrax used as a biological agent spread into the air because the wind carried it out of the facility and into the nearby city. In the following weeks, at least 68 people died, but it is believed that the actual number is much higher. This facility is called Compound 19, and it was secretly operated even though such weapons were already banned under international agreements, but not to reveal the truth. They said the cause of death was contaminated meat. The areas were cleaned up. At night, the death records were altered and the real results of the autopsies were hidden. Even the doctors were ordered to change their findings. The symptoms that clearly came from airborne anthrax were concealed. Even the international investigators were only shown what the government wanted them to see. Inside the facility, they were producing one of the most dangerous types of anthrax called Anthrax 836. This was made to be used in missiles targeting cities in the United States. Production continued nonstop, day and night, and no one outside knew about it. It wasn't until 1992 when Boris Yeltsin admitted what really happened. Only then was it proven that the outbreak actually came from the military facility. Today, the buildings of Compound 19 are still there, and up to now it still hasn't been opened for international inspection. Number 7 is Fort Detrick in Maryland. Inside a secure military base in the United States, you can find one of the country's most important centers for biological research. Since World War II, this place has been used for studying diseases, bacteria, and other biological agents. For many years, it was part of a program related to biological weapons, before this was officially banned. After that, the direction of the research changed. It focused more on developing vaccines, detection systems, and on how to protect people against dangerous diseases. But even though this was the official objective, security in the area remained tight, and the information released to the public was limited. And until now, experiments and studies continue inside it, far from the eyes of most people. Number 6 is the Plum Island Animal Disease Center in New York. About 3 miles from the coast of Long Island, there is an island that the public cannot easily access. From 1954 until 2012, this was the main research facility of the U.S. for dangerous animal diseases. In the middle of the island, there's a simple complex of gray buildings surrounded by a fence, and the only way in is by government ferry. But for many years, it became one of the most controversial, not just because of the confirmed activities carried out here, but also because of the things that were never fully explained. The main purpose of the place is to study foot and mouth disease, an illness that can cause massive damage to the livestock industry. Because it spreads extremely fast, the facility was placed on an island to prevent it from reaching the mainland. A possible connection was investigated, but it was officially denied. Not everyone believed it. An even more controversial issue emerged: Lyme disease. This disease was first detected in a town in Connecticut in 1975, just a few miles from Plum Island. This disease is carried by ticks. And according to documents that surfaced after World War II, the U.S. military conducted experiments involving diseases carried by ticks. A scientist named Willy Bergdorfer worked on this kind of research, and before he passed away, he admitted that there were projects not disclosed to the public about using ticks as weapons. But up to now, there is no clear evidence of a direct connection between Plum Island and the emergence of Lyme disease. The problem is, many records still haven't been released. In 2012, it was announced that the facility would be replaced by a new biolab in Kansas. The island was offered for sale. The buildings are still standing and the documents remain secret. The island is still there up to now, quiet, closed to the public, and full of questions that still have no clear answers. But there is another kind of place, those that are not only secret but also surrounded by speculation. Places where information is lacking, so there are more questions than answers. Number 5, HAARP in Alaska. About 200 miles from Anchorage, there's a research site that's quite unusual. It looks different. You can see almost 180 antenna towers. Each one is about 72 feet tall, arranged in a grid pattern in the middle of a vast expanse of land. This is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP. It was built in 1993 by the U.S. Air Force and Navy at a cost of $290 million. For many years, various speculations have spread about this. Some say it can control the weather, some say it can cause earthquakes, and some say it can control people's minds. What HAARP actually does is send radio waves to the ionosphere, the uppermost part of Earth's atmosphere. There are many charged particles that affect the travel of radio signals. This is important for communication systems like GPS, military communication, and long-distance signals. The goal of HAARP is to understand how this works and how to improve communication technology. That's why it's impossible for it to control the weather or cause earthquakes. It's now open for public research and is more transparent than before. But until now, it's still being talked about. Not because of what it does, but because of what people think about it. Number 4 is the Yamantau complex in Russia. In the southern Ural Mountains, there's a mountain called Yamantau. The meaning of its name is bad mountain or evil mountain. Even before, this place was already known as difficult to live in, full of mud, a harsh environment, and filled with wild animals. In the late 1970s, a major construction project began in and around this mountain. There is still no clear explanation as to what is really being done there. U.S. intelligence noticed this because of the scale of the operation. Thousands of workers, new roads and railways, and an entire city built for those working there. That city was later called Mekgorje. It has a population of almost 16,000, but even though there is a city, not just anyone can enter. The checkpoints are strict, and people's movements are controlled. And even when Russia's economy collapsed in the 1990s, a time when teachers and employees weren't getting paid, construction in Yamantau didn't stop. This is where things became even more suspicious. If the country was short on money, why did such a massive project continue? Russia has given different explanations about this. Sometimes they said it was a mining site, sometimes a food storage, sometimes a repository for national treasures, and sometimes a bunker for the government in case of nuclear war. But none of these explanations convince the analysts. The most widely accepted theory now is that it is an underground command center, a place where the government and military can continue operations even during a nuclear attack. And it is also connected to a system called Dead Hand, an automatic nuclear retaliation system that can launch missiles even if there is no longer a living command structure. If that's true, it means that even if the country's leadership is gone, there is still a system capable of retaliating. Until now, it's still not clear what's really inside Yamantau. But one thing is certain, a huge amount was spent on this, and it's so important that it can never be stopped. Number 3, the Utah Data Center of the National Security Agency in Utah. About 25 miles from Salt Lake City, there's a place that's barely marked from the road. Just simple gray buildings with no clear sign. It has one of the largest data storage systems in the world. It was completed in 2014 at a cost of almost $1.5 billion. To operate, it needs about 65 megawatts of electricity, enough for more than 33,000. Inside the agency, they called it the Massive Data Repository, and that's exactly what it does. Collecting, storing, and analyzing massive amounts of digital data, not just from other countries, but also from within the U.S. According to William Binney, this system was designed to store emails, phone calls, internet searches, and other digital activity even without a warrant. At first, this was denied, but in 2013, Edward Snowden released documents that proved this kind of surveillance. According to the documents, it can store almost all types of communication, from emails and calls to travel records and credit card transactions. The exact capacity is unclear, but some estimates say it reaches the exabyte level, which is almost equivalent to a huge portion of the internet. It's not just the size of the system, but also the idea of bulk collection. This means data is collected even if there's no suspicion about a person, just in case it might be needed in the future. But whatever the decision is, the system continues to grow. It was even expanded in 2019, and its capacity keeps increasing. Because once this kind of surveillance system is established, it doesn't easily shrink. Number 2, the Dulce base in New Mexico. Stories spread about a secret facility that is said to be frightening.
Puan sa ilalim ng lupa sa
According to some reports, it's said to be an underground facility with many levels where different kinds of experiments are conducted. Some say it is used for advanced research that is kept from the public. But it's important to clarify that there is no official confirmation from the government that such a base exists. Despite this, it continues to be talked about and has become part of a modern-day mystery. The lack of clear information only fuels the rumors even more. Number 1, Groom Lake, more commonly known as Area 51. This is a symbol of something deeper, of how much a government is capable of hiding. For many years, the United States denied the existence of such a facility. Even with witnesses, even with employees who spoke out, even with court cases, the answer remained the same. They said such a place does not exist. But while they were denying it, there were planes flying in the sky, planes that seemed like they shouldn't exist yet at that time. The U-2 was tested here. The A-12 was developed here. And this is where the SR-71 Blackbird first flew an aircraft so fast it could outrun almost any missile. For decades, all of this was kept secret. So when stories about UFOs started to spread, they weren't just made up. There were people who saw things in the sky that they couldn't explain. And because there was no clear answer from the government, they came up with their own explanations. According to the CIA, the UFO reports even helped cover up what was really happening at the site. A conspiracy theory became a shield for a much bigger secret. To this day, Area 51 remains active. There are about 1,500 employees who go in every day. Security is tight, and people who approach without permission can be stopped using lethal force. In 2019, there were people who tried to enter the area during an event called Storm Area 51. Thousands went to the desert, but no one got in. And even though some documents have been released, even though there are programs that weren't kept secret, the story is still incomplete. Because in over 70 years of operation, there are projects that may never be shown to the public. And that's the most important point. It's not about whether there are aliens or not. It's not about whether there are UFOs or not. It's about how much of history we don't know, because it was deliberately hidden. And between the things we already know and the things that remain secret, that's where the mystery lives.